Illinois will become the 11th state in the nation to allow the use of recreational cannabis. There are still a lot of questions, though, about exactly how it's all going to work.
Doctors worry that could lead to a spike in pot-related ER visits.
Well, doctors here tell us they are still running the numbers, but say that yes, absolutely, they have seen a spike since the first of the year, and tonight they're sending some words of caution to the community.
This vote that happened in the House just a short time ago, Illinois becomes the 11th state to legalize marijuana.
So the recent legalization of marijuana for recreational purposes in Illinois has captured our attention for a few reasons. I guess we didn't really think about it until now, but we haven't noticed a lot of change or any new approaches in regards to how the school actually handles the issue of drug use, and more specifically marijuana use. After all, studies do show that marijuana is the most commonly misused drug among adolescents, followed by prescription painkillers and inhalants. So do students really know enough, or do they just think they know enough? And if they don't know enough, how does one exactly provoke a student at McHenry Community High School to seek the facts and apply them to their lives? Okay, those are pretty loaded questions, so before we go any further, we think it's important to provide you with some specifics. So here's what we know. Since January 1st of 2020, cannabis has been legalized for recreational use in Illinois for people 21 and older. Reportedly, people in Illinois spent more than $39.2 million on cannabis products during the first couple months of the legalization, which is said to be one of the strongest responses in the history of cannabis legalization in the United States. But we still have to think about the fact that this only applies to the legal purchase of products, and as we know, marijuana is still illegal for people under the age of 21. So our first real question concerned how this legalization actually applied to the unlawful use of marijuana, specifically among students in McHenry County, and also whether or not it has consequently affected the way people view the drug.
So, if you don't mind, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Justin Strum, the Dean of Students at McHenry West High School. Yeah, it's only been a month. I would say recently we've seen actually more actual marijuana than dabs. The number of occurrences, I would say, hasn't increased or decreased.
This was very interesting to us as we had pretty much inferred the opposite, but it was much more complex than that. We found that legalization as a whole was two-sided. First of all, when marijuana is sold illegally, there's always a chance that it could be laced with some other substance. Second of all, when cannabis or really any other drug is illegal, potency is going to be relatively higher because this makes it both more attractive to buyers and more of it can be shipped in a smaller space. Thus, it can also be sold at a higher price. With that being said, legalization doesn't necessarily mean that it's completely safe.
But as far as the past month or so, there's been a bit of a change as far as mentality that it's legal, so it's not bad, but unfortunately some of the most dangerous drugs are legal. So we have alcohol and benzodiazepines, but those are two of the most dangerous drugs to withdraw from. So as far as being legal, making something good isn't necessarily true.
With marijuana legalization, people have the choice to buy whatever products they want, which can be a good thing in some aspects, but is ultimately overshadowed by the problem with potency.
Alright, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Molly. I am a registered nurse. I work in the obstetrical unit of the community hospital. I work with both moms and babies. And I also am a volunteer with the McHenry County Substance Abuse Coalition. So I think one of the biggest things is potency of marijuana, THC, can be different based on what product you are ingesting, whether you're smoking it, whether you're vaping it, whether you're eating it. You never know what your reaction might be.
A common misconception of the drug involves how it is the same as the cannabis that was being used in the 1960s and 1980s, when in fact the plants being grown between those time periods contained THC levels that were less than 2%, with the rest of the plant containing CBD, the element of the flower that is non-intoxicating. Those levels have changed between the 1990s and present day, with levels of THC in the plants being grown shifting from 4% to 12% in 2015, and growing to anywhere between 17% and 28% since 2017. With such high levels of THC, the amount of CBD in the products being sold has decreased to around 0.09 to 0.2%. These levels apply to the vaping and smoking of the drug. However, concentrated formulations such as dab, oils, and edibles have reached THC concentrations more than 95%. Now, even though there can be intensified effects in adults, what we really are interested in is how this affects teenagers.
One of the biggest things that we're seeing now with carts and everything is that you actually can overdose on marijuana. So there's no documented case of plant overdose, but as far as dabbing or using carts, all those things, any of that synthetic piece, you're actually able to overdose now. Just because it's not fatal doesn't mean it's not an overdose.
With these higher potencies in the past years, the long-term effects are currently not very known and really can't be studied. But we can reflect on and compare studies from the past. According to the United States National Library of Medicine, because the potency of marijuana is so intensified nowadays, the dependency levels of the drug have also been increased, and withdrawal symptoms are something that have become more resistant and more serious as compared to the past. Studies documented by the National Institutes of Health prove that marijuana use at a young age can also affect the development of the prefrontal motor cortex of the brain, which can in turn account for the increase of addiction issues as well as the increased likeliness for the development of anxiety and depression disorders as well as psychosis. Now, with the details I researched, we wanted to see if any of the students at MCHS knew about these facts as well. So we decided to conduct an anonymous survey that would ask students about their knowledge of marijuana and where they acquired it. This was the most interesting thing we saw from the results. When asked if they felt that their health class covered marijuana to the extent that they understood the repercussions and health risks of using it, a majority of the students said yes. But when asked if they could personally remember 3 things regarding marijuana that an educator or PSA video in our school has addressed, 52% said maybe, but they might have to look it up. 31.4% said no, which leaves 16.3% of students that answered yes. So, on that basis, we have come to believe that students think they know enough, even if their definition of enough is really only surface-level knowledge. And with that in mind, our next big interest concerned actually finding out what the school was specifically doing to address this issue.
So there's a couple options that we give students if they are caught with marijuana. The first one is a 10-day out-of-school suspension. And the second one is a 5-day out-of-school suspension with a referral to Rosecrans, which is a program where students can go and seek help for substance abuse. We have someone from Rosecrans that comes in every week, and they are able to meet with students on a weekly basis rather than having to take time out of school.
I think McHenry has the best program out of McHenry County, but that's my personal opinion.
So, could you just introduce yourself if you don't mind?
I'm Mr. Heil. I teach band at McHenry High School. I don't know. I mean, I think that what we're asked to do right now is like to put up a poster. We're supposed to talk about it or show a video during AIM.
I think I've seen little communication from the school. I know that in the monthly newsletters that Mrs. Potoff sends out, there usually is some sort of substance use information.
I mean, I don't mind putting up a poster in my room. I don't necessarily think that's like an effective way to make kids do anything or think about anything.
So, to us, it felt like there were 2 separate kinds of preventions going on here. What we wanted to figure out was, how do we merge the 2 together in a way that's effective for the students to understand? To do that, we also needed to consider the issue of the school being the sole provider of this information.
The school can only do so many things. The job of the school is to get kids to learn about math and science and reading. And it's also the job of the school to educate kids about drugs. It's hard to do all of these things and do them well. I think it's the job of the parents. Educate parents on how to facilitate conversations with their students, how to see factors of students doing that, and then how to handle it and how to cope with it. And if that's something that comes up in a discussion, or if there's an issue that happens at school, being open to having those conversations, and having the information and the data in my brain as somebody who can talk about all of that with students.
So when we started out, we figured that our argument would fall under the lines of the school isn't currently doing enough to educate students about marijuana. But we found that it's rather the way that the issue is being approached that's creating these problems of miscommunication and little knowledge associated with the topic. There really is no possible way to get every student at McHenry West campus to care about how marijuana affects their bodies, but just being open to discussion and having places where students can go to have meaningful conversations with people who care about them and also know the specifics. That's what we believe might be the most significant option for students.
Small groups of people, isolated circumstances with a specific objective and a specific goal, which is related to students in a real way. That's the most effective way to teach.